In the brutal Wild West, a quiet blacksmith discovers an Apache woman tied to his fence left to die. Saving her draws him into a storm of danger, loyalty, and forbidden tenderness. What begins as mercy becomes destiny. Like and subscribe and tell me where you are watching from. Let's get started. Calder Van saw her at dawn tied to his fence like a warning left by hands he did not see. The Apache woman hung weak under the rising heat. Her wrists were scraped raw and her lips looked wounded from thirst. Calder stepped closer, unsure what he had found. He cut the ropes with steady hands, releasing her from the cruel grip that held her through the night. Her legs buckled the moment she was free, so he caught her before she fell. She was light, trembling with fear and exhaustion, like she had been fighting all night to stay alive. Her eyes opened long enough to meet his, but they held more pain than trust. She whispered only one line. "Do whatever you want, cowboy," though her voice carried no surrender, only defeat. Calder felt that sentence cut deeper than any blade because it revealed the horror she had faced. He lifted her into his arms, carrying her toward his smithy where the morning heat would not scorch her skin. She barely breathed, resting her head against his chest as if she had nothing left to hold on to. Calder stepped inside and placed her gently on a blanket near the forge. He brought water, letting her sip slowly until her breathing steadied. She watched him with guarded eyes, unsure if he was safety or another threat. Calder did not speak much, but his silence held a gentle steadiness she understood. Her hands shook as she reached for more water. The smithy was quiet, except for the dying glow of embers from the night before. The smell of iron hung in the air, but it felt safer than the open desert. Calder sat not too close, giving her room to breathe. She studied him with a wary, slow curiosity. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the yard. Calder glanced out, sensing danger, even though he saw no tracks, no motion, no sign of who had tied her to his fence. It felt wrong, like the land itself was warning him to stay alert. She tried to sit upright, but the pain in her shoulders forced her back down. Calder helped her just enough to ease her posture. She whispered her name, Nira, her voice soft and rough. It was the first piece of truth she seemed willing to give him. He asked nothing else, letting the silence tell her she did not owe him answers. Nira watched him shape metal with slow, steady swings of his hammer, each strike rhythmic and calming. The sound grounded her as she drifted between wakefulness and exhaustion. Hours passed while her strength returned little by little. She ate small bites of bread and dried meat, chewing slowly as if every motion carried weight. Calder noticed her flinch at every distant sound, yet she fought to hide her fear, showing more strength than he expected. The desert wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of horses. Calder paused at the doorway, listening with sharp focus. Nira sensed it too, her body tensing like a hunted animal. She reached for the blanket as though it could shield her from whoever might be approaching. Calder stepped outside, scanning the ridgeline and open fields. Nothing moved, but the feeling of danger gnawed at him. He had seen fear before, but the kind Nira carried came from men, not beasts. Whoever tied her to his fence had done it with cruel purpose. Inside, Nira forced herself to stand, using the wall for balance. She looked around the smithy, noting tools, barrels, and exits, like she was planning a way out if danger walked through the door. She was wounded, but far from weak, and Calder respected that silent fire. He brought her a clean cloth soaked in cool water. She pressed it to her wrists, wincing as the sting hit her skin. Yet she breathed deeper afterward, grounding herself. Calder watched quietly until she nodded, showing silent gratitude even though words felt heavy between them. The sun gradually softened as afternoon light spread over the land. Calder lit a small fire to brew a simple herbal drink that might restore her energy. Nira watched his careful movements, understanding he meant no harm. Still, fear lingered in her eyes, shaped by whatever she had escaped. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked under the weight of memories she was not ready to share. Calder shook his head, gently telling her without words that she did not need to push herself. She sat back, closing her eyes, letting the warmth of the cup steady her heartbeat. Evening came, casting golden light through the open doorway. Calder studied the horizon again, still expecting riders to appear. Naira followed his gaze, reading the tension in his shoulders. She understood he was preparing for trouble, not from her but for her, and that small truth softened her fear. She moved closer to the forge for warmth, feeling steadier now. The faint glow of the coals flickered across her face, revealing strength hidden beneath exhaustion. Calder handed her a piece of soft cloth for her shoulders. She accepted it, choosing trust one small step at a time. Night settled quiet and heavy around the smithy. Calder kept the lantern low, listening to every sound outside. Naira lay near the fire, but sleep did not claim her easily. She kept her eyes half open, watching the man who had pulled her from the fence of death. Calder finally spoke only one sentence: "You are safe here." Naira let the words settle in her chest, soft and unfamiliar. She breathed slowly, letting her pulse settle. For the first time since she was taken, she felt the faint, fragile shape of safety forming around her. As the desert night deepened, they remained silent, but connected by the thin thread of trust growing between them. Calder kept watch, alert and ready, while Naira finally closed her eyes, resting without fear. Neither knew what dawn would bring, but something had already begun to change between them. Naira woke to the steady ring of Calder hammering metal into shape. The sound flowed through the smithy like a heartbeat, grounding her fear. She rose slowly, feeling stronger than the day before. Calder offered water without a word, respecting the quiet strength she carried, even while wounded. She spoke her name again, Naira, letting it settle fully in the air. Then she revealed the truth she had held tight. A band of ruthless ranchers had taken her and others, trading captives under the desert sun. Calder felt a surge of anger burning through his normally calm, steady nature. His jaw tightened with every word she shared. He had seen cruelty before, but nothing like men who stole people for profit and sport. Naira described how she had escaped under moonlight, running until her strength failed. Those men did not stop hunting her even after she fled. As she spoke, her hands trembled, but her eyes held fierce resolve. Calder listened, absorbing every detail like iron heating inside him. She had survived something monstrous, yet she stood here fighting to reclaim her breath. Calder felt protective with a depth he had never known before. Hoofbeats thundered in the distance, sending a ripple of fear through Naira. She froze as the sound grew louder, rolling over the land like a storm returning. Her hand shot out, gripping Calder's arm tightly. Her eyes filled with raw terror at the thought of being taken again. Calder moved to the doorway, his posture strong and unyielding. Naira watched him step into the sunlight alone, ready to face whatever danger approached. 3 armed men rode toward the smithy, each with a cruel arrogance etched across their faces. Calder felt the weight of the moment settle. The men to Naira be returned, claiming she belonged to them. Calder stared with silent defiance, his chest rising steadily. He had no intention of surrendering her. The lead man swung down from his horse, hand resting near his holster, waiting for Calder to back down. Calder did not. His stillness held more strength than any shouted threat. The sun blazed overhead, creating heat that shimmered between them like a veil of warning. Naira stood inside, watching fear and courage battling inside her as the standoff stretched tight as wire. She could have stayed hidden. She could have remained behind the forge, trusting Calder to protect her. But something inside her shifted. Naira stepped forward, walking out of the smithy, her step shaky but determined. She stopped beside Calder, lifting her chin with quiet defiance. The men sneered at her fearless stance. They expected a broken captive, not a woman reclaiming her power. Calder glanced at her, and their eyes met for one steady heartbeat. In that look they shared trust, strength, and something deeper forming quietly between them. The lead rancher hesitated, sensing a change he could not explain. Naira stood tall, refusing to cower. Calder placed himself half a step in front of her, forming a shield without words. The ranchers weighed their options, calculating risk against pride under the unforgiving sun. An uneasy silence stretched before the men finally turned their horses. The threat in their eyes lingered like smoke, yet they retreated without fight. Dust trailed behind them as they rode away, shrinking into the horizon. Naira released a breath she had been holding since dawn. Calder waited until they vanished, then turned to Naira with steady calm. She trembled from the intensity of the confrontation, yet relief softened her features. She had chosen to stand beside him despite her fear. Calder felt something shift between them deeper than gratitude. They returned inside where shadows cooled the air. Naira sat by the forge, touching the place where she had grabbed Calder's arm, feeling the echo of courage that moment had demanded. Calder sat close enough for comfort, but not so close to overwhelm her fragile strength. The afternoon drifted with soft quiet. Calder repaired tools while glancing at Naira, ensuring she felt safe. She helped him sort metal in small parts, her movements steadying her mind. Words were few, yet meaning filled the stillness between them, growing with each shared breath. As evening settled, warm light painted the smithy walls golden. Naira told him more of her past, how she lost her family, how she carried grief like a shadow. Calder listened with gentle patience. He did not try to fix her wounds, only held space for them. She thanked him softly for saving her twice, first from the fence, then from the men who hunted her. Calder responded with a small nod, but his eyes carried something unspoken, something tender. He had lived a lonely life, but her presence lit corners he had forgotten existed. Night deepened around them, with the desert wind whispering through the open doorway. Calder lit a lantern, casting a soft glow over Naira's face. She looked tired, but peaceful, strength slowly replacing fear. Calder felt a stirring in his chest, like a promise forming without words. Naira approached him quietly, sitting near his side. She admitted how she feared the ranchers would return, but also how she believed Calder would stand with her no matter what came. He assured her she was safe here, and something in his tone felt like a vow. She reached for his hand, gently testing the boundary between survival and trust. Calder allowed her fingers to rest against his strong, steady palm. For the first time she felt grounded, safe, and not alone. Their hands stayed together, sharing warmth in the quiet flicker of lantern light. Outside, stars scattered across the sky, dusting it with silver. Naira stepped outside, breathing the cool air. Calder joined her, standing close enough that their shoulders brushed. She whispered that the night no longer frightened her because she was not facing it alone anymore. Calder promised softly that no harm would ever reach her again. Naira's eyes glimmered with emotion as she leaned against him, letting her heart rest where strength, kindness, and safety finally met. In that moment she felt hope forming, like dawn rising after a long dark night. Together they stood watching the moon climb above Red Mesa. Naira whispered that one day she wished to build a life where no chains, no fear, and no cruel men could ever take her freedom again. Calder told her he would help her reach that dream. She turned toward him, letting the truth in her heart guide her. She told him she trusted him with her future and her healing. Calder touched her cheek gently, his voice soft and steady, saying she was no longer alone. Their spirits connected in that quiet moment. Under the vast desert sky, something unspoken but powerful took root between them. A bond born from pain, courage, and shared defiance. Calder held Naira close, and she let herself believe in safety and beginnings, and in the fragile hope of love, slowly finding its way through broken places.